name is Lisa Buffo. I'm the founder and CEO of the Cannabis Marketing Association. And thank you for joining us this Tuesday, May 7th, the first, has it been a week yet since we got the rescheduling news? First week of hopefully some good momentum and good change in this industry. It's a really significant and awesome stepping stone and progress we have not seen. I started in the industry in 2014, and that was the biggest step I think that has been taken in 10 years, and it's a step in the right direction. So very excited for that, to get into what that all means. For our members who are here, thank you so much for supporting us and our business and the community. You all make CMA what it is, Jason included. He's one of our members, and all of your feedback is so helpful to us, and that helps us better understand how to program our events, our webinars, our content in order to meet your needs. So do know that my line is always open. Emily's line is always open to better understand what your marketing struggles are in your 9 to 5. And that's how we decide on the topics for these webinars and all of that, to make sure that you guys have the tools that you need to do your jobs better. That being said, we are launching, we'll publicly announce this in the next week or so, but we're launching an 8-part online Ask Me Anything series. So we're going to have them on specific topics where we will have an expert. So say an expert on SEO, they will give about a 10-15 minute take on what they see as what's happening with SEO, what's happening moving forward, how anything has changed with rescheduling. And then we'll leave a solid 30 minutes just for open-ended Ask Me Anything style. So if you've ever seen an AMA on Reddit or Q&A after an event, we're just going to do that live, so folks have the opportunity to ask their questions and get them answered. So it'll be a mix of curated questions. We'll have you submit some in advance so we can prepare, as well as on the fly questions. So there's some engagement and everyone can have a degree of getting their questions answered. So that's going to be coming up. So look out for that from CMA in our newsletter. And for today's webinar, again, Jason's going to be speaking for a little bit, then we'll do Q&A at the end. We're going to be live Instagramming stories, so follow us at Canna Marketing. If you post on social media during today's event, feel free to. LinkedIn, X, I still weird saying X, it's like still Twitter in my head. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Instagram, we're going to be monitoring. We'll repost, reshare, comment, and engage with you. We are a marketing organization, so we love to do this, and we know you all are marketers as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason. Jason, I'll let you introduce yourself. Go right into your content, holler at me or Emily if you need anything. And then as you wrap, I'll pop back on and we can jump into Q&A.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And thank you everybody for joining today. It's been an exciting, let's just call it 7 days. So exciting, in fact, with the announcement of rescheduling, that the presentation I'm about to show you, I completely restarted and did over again during the weekend so that it can be more relevant to the exciting moves that are happening in our industry. My name is Jason Smallheer. I am the CEO and lead strategist for Elevated Growth Group. I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop here real quick so all that material can be there in front of you. Okay. Give me just a second now as I share my screen, some things start moving around. Okay. This is who I am. And specifically, I focus on digital marketing for the cannabis industry. Now, the real win for what it is we do here is, I know there's a lot of marketers out here, whether it be digital marketers or not. I like to focus the bulk of my attention on the streaming services that are available to you. Talked about that in another webinar. I'm going to lean into that a little bit more today. And we're going to talk more about some other things that you can do either for your marketing agency or you can do for your dispensary today. I'm spending very, very little. Why me? I've been in marketing for about 30 years. I'm a marketing professor at 3 schools, a couple in the Midwest and some on the East Coast, or 1 on the East Coast, 2 in the Midwest. Speaking of Midwest, for those of you who are listening, I hope you had a safe evening. I know in my neck of the woods, it was not the best of evenings with weather. So I want you to know that my thoughts are with you. I saw Kansas logging in just a few moments ago. So let's have a Zen moment. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about some exciting things that are coming down the pike for us. The big piece would be some of the benefits that we get with rescheduling. Of course, and these are just some data points that come from some vetted sources, cannabis companies will now be able to deduct their marketing expenses. This is a major deal. because up until recently, any dollars that were spent for marketing were purely money out. You had to measure that against a return on investment, and at the end of the year, still just consider that an expense. When rescheduling happens, you will now put yourself in a position where you can deduct your marketing expenses. Cannabis companies are no longer going to be treated as criminal enterprises. That's a big win. And of course, like I talked about, the write-offs and the significant tax burdens that are going to go away. There's more on 280E, but that's a discussion for another webinar. What we're going to talk about now are some things that we can do today. When we start talking about marketing specifically in the digital space, one of the things that we have to take into great consideration is the local compliance requirements for our particular region. I am in Missouri. I was at the Lucky Leaf Expo in Minneapolis 2 weeks ago, and I'll be there in Albuquerque in September. 3 different markets, 3 different sets of rules. So as a dispensary owner or manager, it's your responsibility to know what those requirements are. You've got a lot on your plate. So my ask is, if you're working in a dispensary, reach out to somebody who's on this webinar now who works in marketing specifically, and let us do the heavy lifting and find out some of that information for you. I saw the Toke agencies on here. Love your content on LinkedIn. That's a very valuable resource. Or drop me an email as well. I'll have all my contact information at the end. But there is a lot that we can do that most of us didn't realize that we could. One of the big pieces that's in front of us is using marketing, specifically digital. You can do other things as well, but I'm going to focus on digital for the purposes of this conversation today, is identifying your perfect customer, that perfect market segment. A little bit of marketing jargon here is the old Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. I want to encourage you who work in dispensaries or marketers as well, is to think about that small segment, that small 20% that's going to give you 80% of your revenue. I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. I live in a college town, okay? There is a large collection of college students. They put together $5 or $10, and on a Friday, somebody goes to the local dispensary, they buy a couple of pre-rolls, and the shopping cart is worth about $40. Those particular individuals know where your dispensary is. Believe me, they do. There's value in marketing to them, but there's a certain income barrier that they have, as opposed to maybe your older Gen X folks, or in my case, my parents who are baby boomers. My baby boomer parents have an abundance of extra income, and a lot of baby boomers do, but they haven't really given a whole lot of thought to cannabis openly because, well, it's part of a different generation for them. But I'm going to use baby boomers as an example. If you were in a dispensary and you were able to market to, let's just say, that late 50s, early 60s and up crowd, that particular group of people is going to be more prone to spend more money in your dispensary than the college students are. If you had a finite marketing budget, I'm just going to throw easy numbers out, for example, here. If you were to say, hey, I've got $1,000 a month to spend, you could spend that $1,000 a month and target your college students, and they'd come in and spend $40. Or you could take that same $1,000 a month and target the baby boomers, and they may spend over $100 a visit. I use this example that I saw happen in Joplin, Missouri, tail end of last summer. I'm talking to a dispensary that has a wonderful, unique selling proposition. They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They never close. And I saw these 2 older ladies walk in hand, and the bud tender at the door said, hi, how can I help you all today? And they said, well, we're new to this. We're 83 years old, and we just want the pain to stop. Wow. They needed a lot of education, but when you market to that person, they both went in, and they both, I talked to the bud tender after the fact, they spent more than $100 each. There's an opportunity that you could be missing. So identify at your dispensary and in your market that target segment that's going to give you the greatest return on your marketing dollar. The other real big win for us as an industry, we are big on education. And when we develop educational content that informs customers, we put ourselves in a better position because we're controlling the narrative. I'm a product of the just say no generation, the 80s, Nancy Reagan and all that stuff. I grew up in a conservative military household where my parents would say drugs are bad. Dare comes to school and all the kids wear the t-shirt. My parents, the baby boomers as well, very conservative, and they're told, quote, drugs are bad. And I'm not going to use cannabis and the word drugs in the same sentence. I don't mean to do that in a derogatory way, but here's an opportunity. Something brought those two 83-year-old ladies into a dispensary, but they needed some education to learn that, hey, it's okay. We're with you and we want you to feel better. My mother's in her 70s and she's got chronic hand and shoulder issues from just years of little work. She used to design flowers and lift things and all that stuff. She was a stay-at-home mom my whole childhood, so she did a lot of moving things around the house. And she says to me, Jay, my parents call me Jay. She goes, Jay, my shoulder's really been hurting. What have you been doing? And I've had my shoulder redone twice from foolish escapades on a mountain bike. But anyway, I said, well, one of the things that's really helped me out, Mom, is, as you know, I'm taking cannabis for another issue. I have a epileptic condition that's helped me out, but it's also alleviated some of the pain that I have in my shoulder. And my mom was like, is that really going to work? And again, she grew up in an area, she's from the Northeast, fairly conservative Italian immigrant household that always said, no, no, no. A lot of the people we're trying to talk to, there's those folks, again, the folks we want to talk to, who love us and embrace our industry and know what we're about. But there's a larger segment that don't know or they're a little shy. Think about the first time you, whether you were of age or not, you ordered a cocktail, it may have felt a little weird. Or the first time you went into a bar with your friends, you had to pull out your ID, real or not, to get carded, right? There are people that need that education, that need to know it's okay. So here's an opportunity I'm going to talk to, well, everybody here for that matter. If you can get a good testimonial, and you can do this from some of your customers to say what your dispensary has done for them, or what your product line or a particular brand has done for them, this gives you an opportunity to really share your voice through their voice. Talk to you in a minute about trust, but what we've learned is that if I have two 83-year-old ladies saying, I went to your dispensary, spent some time with Jane Q Bud Tender, and I feel so much better. The pain has gone away and I'm sleeping better. Now, again, we're not making any type of medical announcement. She's just talking about how she feels. People will trust that message more than a billboard on the side of the street that's being clever. Hi, how are you? I see a lot of those. Don't be clever, be clear. But using testimonials as a voice for change. Another thing that we can do is really engage on social media. And as an industry, that's something we do really, really well. A lot of posts on social media, but one of the things that we're doing a lot of is showing our thing. And I want you to think about social media in a slightly different viewpoint. If I took some really good flour and I put it on my tray and I rolled a perfect joint, I'm not going to walk out to the street corner and say, hey, stranger, look at this. And they're not going to say, well, Jason, I like that. No, I want to ask you to post with intention and create content that's going to get somebody to say, wow, okay? Use YouTube. Video drives engagement. You're not able to monetize your channel because Google is, or YouTube is a Google product and Google has their rules, but there's an abundance of material, both educational and just entertaining, that you can put on YouTube. One of the channels that I follow, I've talked to the Cannabis Marketing Association about this before, and I mentioned it in Minneapolis, was a channel called That High Couple. I encourage you to look them up. Cute couple. They used to be in Southern California. Now they're up in Seattle. But I learned to really, this is going to sound crazy, I really learned how to roll better by watching their channel. They had a 5-minute video on how to use raw rolling papers and a tool to roll a better joint. My rolling skills were terrible, but I was able to learn this in a very confined and safe space, my area down here in my home. So if you take your social media content, you're posting something that's of extreme value, even if the person views it and they're not your customer who's going to walk in specifically, it builds your online presence and it gives you and us a ton of credibility in the space. Because to some, I'll use my mother and father, they think that we're just out to live a elevated lifestyle, but they're not seeing all the benefits that it brings to our life. But using our social channels, using video, even if we create a blog that shows us maybe ways to store your flower or how to grow at home, I'll talk more about that in a second. It establishes you, your brand, your clients, your dispensary as an authority in the space. So I want to encourage you to think about things like that as you're posting on social. Just because you've got a cool shipment in, you take a picture of it, that's great. But I want you to plan tomorrow, today. There are free calendars you can download online. You can use an Excel spreadsheet. Heck, you can use a notepad and just write down the items that you know you're going to post about. Now, I'm going to ask you to be flexible because sometimes things change. But we know when 420 is, maybe we're going to have the items that we plan out, and then we have the fun things that we put in on the outside. Maybe you've got a line outside. Sure, post something like that. Maybe Afro Man is performing at your dispensary. That happened here in Missouri last year. Maybe you're doing something like that. That's fun. But post with intention and think about this. If I walked up to a stranger on the street, are they going to go, "What the heck is this, man?" Or are they going to go, "Wow, that's amazing." Be amazing. Testimonials, we just started to talk about that a few moments ago. If you watch a television show, whether it's streaming television, broadcast, listen to a radio, listen to a podcast, we are flooded with ad messages. On average, you ready for this, friends? We are exposed to roughly 15,000 ad messages a day. Anything from a billboard to a QR code on the side of a truck to a message we hear in our ears or see with our eyeballs. 15,000. That's a lot of noise. But I am more prone to making a purchase decision, not because of your ad message, but because of what you tell me. If I reach out to Lisa and I say, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this?" and she gives me a recommendation, no amount of money that we spend on an ad campaign is going to carry as much weight as Lisa's endorsement. So what I want to ask you to do is, alongside a marketing campaigns are valuable, but go and get those user reviews and your testimonials from your best customers, or maybe that first time customer. I remember the first time I got my medical card here in Missouri, and then I took that and I walked into a dispensary. I came from a conservative household. I was in my 40s. I had no idea what to experience. I brought my wife with me. She was my support system, and I asked a bunch of questions. I'd never smoked a cigarette in my life, let alone cannabis. So I go home with this collection of things because I'm going to try something new for the first time. And what was the most impactful for me, not so much that my wife was there, was the bud tender who spent 30 to 45 minutes answering my questions, talking to me about, "Hey, this is what it's like." And she set me up for the right expectations. Her name is Jennifer. She's a bud tender at Trinity here in Missouri. Absolutely love her. She looks like Amy Winehouse. She's just got all the tools, but extremely knowledgeable. I would give them a testimonial day and night for Jennifer. And she recognizes me when I walk in, whether I'm buying a battery for a vape or I'm buying flour or something along those lines. She makes me feel comfortable. Think about how you can use those people who are really happy about what you're bringing and put that alongside any type of a digital marketing campaign. Now we see a logo, we see a brand, maybe we see your billboard or your social posts, and there's Lisa. And Lisa's telling us the amazing experience she had with the friendly bud tenders or the service that she received or being able to order from an app. I want you to think about those things that make you stand out. Your USPs, more marketing jargon, but those are your unique selling propositions. The 2, 3, or 4 things that only your brand or your dispensary can shout from the rooftops. It can't be locally owned. It can't be best prices, and it can't be best customer service. We have a tendency to lean on those. Nobody cares about those. We care about them, but they're platitudes. Everybody says. Let's just assume everybody's got the best customer service, and we don't want to compete on price. We'll talk about that in a minute because, as Lisa talked about in one of the CMA podcasts recently, we don't want to compete on price. It is a race to the bottom. I do want to encourage you, though, to think about email. I get an email from my dispensary, and you probably send emails once a week or a couple times a week encouraging somebody to come to the dispensary. And generally, you've got some kind of an offer. But I want you to use your email list as a tool. Now, if you don't have an email list, we'll talk about building one. Maybe a topic for an AMA that Lisa's going to put together. Hint, hint, wink, wink. I don't know. That'd be kind of cool. But use your list as a tool because these are people that are your customers. They're warm leads already. They know you, they like you, they've done business with you. And if you don't have that list, we'll help you to build one out. But my ask is when you're putting your message out into the space, don't just focus on the offer. The email that I get from Trinity a couple times a week, and I love them, says the same thing. They've got the current weekly offer, buy one, get one. And if you spend over $100, you get a pre-roll for a penny, wear my t-shirt on Tuesday, get 15% off. Veterans always get 10% off. That's nice. But the first 2 or 3 dozen times I see that, it kind of loses its meaning. But if there's something that you can focus on that's different, that lets you stand apart. Again, those unique selling proposition things. It's an opportunity for you to get a different crop of people to come into your dispensary. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. What if, okay, you build strategic relationships with those in the cannabis space? And when I say those in the cannabis space, let's think about this for a second. Maybe as your dispensary, you partner with Raw. And for those of you who have agencies, maybe you can start this going. This is my gift to you. Steal this idea, okay? And what if you reach out on your email list and say, we're having a learn to roll clinic open to the first 20 people, sponsored by Raw, and it's $5. So here's what happens. Somebody signs up online. You have an email address. You should already have it, but you can still get new people that way. They pay $5. That gets somebody to commit. If you say, hey, it's free, they'll sign up. And if they don't show up, they've got nothing to lose. But this $5 covers some basic costs. They show up and you have a half-hour clinic on how to roll a joint, and you're using raw rolling papers, raw rolling machines, raw rolling cones. And when the event is done, you've done something that nobody else has done. You've given somebody a skill. They're going to leave with a pre-roll. And now you've got a customer that's engaged and they're going, wow, that was cool. What else are you going to do? Well, that's great that you asked, because next month we're going to have another clinic on how to use a water pipe, and we're going to have a glass blower here to show you what he makes, and we're going to have some of their stuff there. And I remember the first time I was learning how to use that, I was just choking in my kitchen, and I'm looking up videos on YouTube on how to do all these things. This is an opportunity for you to really stand apart. Depending on your state, maybe you're allowed to grow. Okay. I don't know how to grow in my house. I'd love to learn. There's a lot of shops around here that sell all the supplies, but I don't know what that's like. So what if somebody signs up, $5 gets them to commit? They come into the store and you've got a local grow supply store that you're working with, and they show you what you need, how to set up lights, how to set up timers, maybe how to keep it away from the kids, something along those lines. Maybe another workshop. Are edibles right for me? We've all done this. We all know somebody, maybe ourselves, who's had a bad edible experience at least once, right? And a lot of us say, hey, yeah, I'm going to try gummy. I'm going to try gummy. Oh, I don't feel anything. I'll take two. Then we're on the floor. So maybe we have a workshop on are edibles right for me? $5. Come on in, learn about edibles. We're going to partner with ABC Edible brand. And when you leave, you've got a couple of edibles of your own to try. Those customers are engaged and they're going to come back and see you. Rescheduling is giving you an opportunity to take these ideas and ideas that you may have and share them with the masses and elevate you, pardon the pun, to a different place than your competition. Because the competition is doing the same old things as everybody else is. And the reason they're doing the same old things is because nobody's doing anything different. But this is an opportunity for us to stand up as an industry, really make a lot of noise, and not just build customers, but build relationships that last a lifetime. That's it, my friends. I don't want to spend a ton of time and go over a whole lot for you today, but I want to open this up to questions. Does anybody have any thoughts, concerns, ideas you want to share with the community? And forgive me as I look away over here at the chat. Everybody's a genius. Well, this is fantastic, friends. I'd love to connect with you and let's share some ideas. Oh, some insights on the effectiveness of streaming ads. Thank you, Lyndon. The effectiveness of streaming ads. Streaming ads work extremely well, and I'm going to talk about two different kinds here, Lyndon. There's streaming television and streaming audio. Let's focus on those two here for just a second. Streaming ads work amazingly well because you do have the ability to target. You can target by geography. You can also target by income, age group. Again, if you wanted to talk to the boomers, if you wanted to talk to me, Gen Xers, and you can even target people who are into, say, alternative medicine, things along those lines, acupuncture, deep tissue massage. What we've identified is when you work with myself or somebody else, we can help you pick apart all those little radio buttons that you need to click, because then what happens is you can send that message directly to somebody. Here's where the effectiveness is. There are some regulations, but no different than alcohol, tobacco, or the gaming industry. For example, you can't physically show somebody lighting up, but a streaming ad that I created for a brand in Oklahoma just involved some smoke, okay? And then it was a picture of a hand putting a sticker on the screen. And it said the brand name available, and then the local dispensary puts their tag in there. Okay. So it's an opportunity to say, hey, we're selling biscuits as the brand biscuits, and here's where it is. That pans out very well because you're building brand recognition. Over the course of time, you can start to talk about these workshops that you can have on streaming audio or streaming video. And using streaming audio, there are restrictions, but they're starting to be a lot less. Part of that is because a lot of the streaming providers realize the monetary value that this marketing could have. Okay. But again, if you think about your television ad, if you're if you're watching a football game on the weekend, you never actually see somebody drink a Bud Light. You just see a bunch of people hanging out in a good room holding a Bud Light. So in our particular example, you can just say, here's a whole lot of people learning to roll, or here's a skill that you can learn. Or you see a whole lot of people having a good time. I'm going to give you another concept. Steal this one if you want. But one of the ones we've toyed around with was a woman sitting in her house. She's at the kitchen table. Sorry, my phone's going off here. And the kids are in the background jumping around, paper airplanes, the dogs barking. And then there's this haze and the background just kind of blurs. And she just kind of sits back and relaxes. And then boom, a hand comes across with the brand available at your local dispensary. Doesn't have to be anything crazy and kitschy. It just needs to be clear. Hopefully that answers some of your questions. You see what Jacob says here. Can you discuss the new Google email authorization that has affected sending out bulk emails and ways to improve sending emails with the new Google? Okay, new limitations by Google. Here's one of the catches that we have is the Googles of the world, the Facebooks of the world are always going to be changing their algorithms. I haven't had too many challenges in sending out emails to my particular list, but the challenge I think you will run into, I'm trying to think of a good answer for you here, Jacob, and maybe that's something that we take offline because I do need to lean into that one a little bit more, full transparency. I've not had any challenges, but I'm focusing specifically to a cannabis-based list. If you're looking to build a list for the first time, and if I'm understanding you correctly, do you have a list already, Jacob? Let me make sure I'm understanding you correctly. Just wait and see if Jacob can. And if not, Jacob, my contact info is here. Drop me an email and we can powwow about this. So I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Okay. I don't see anything. Yes, you have a list. Okay. What are some of the challenges, Jacob, you're having right now? Are you being stifled or all your emails going through? Because email marketing is a valuable tool. It really costs us nothing except your time. But one of the challenges you have, stifled, gone from 20% open rate to around 5%. Okay. So there's a couple of things that I invite you to consider. For starters, let's take Google and the provider out of the equation. I would ask you to let's examine the email for starters. Do you have a headline that's going to get somebody's attention? Do you have content that's going to ask somebody to take a specific action? And do you have a call to action? If you have all those things, have you been changing it up? When I see you've gone from 20% open rate to around 5%, my advice would be to look at your highest performing emails, okay? And then I want you to change one thing, just one. Maybe it's just the headline, maybe it's just the art, maybe it's just the CTA, the call to action. Send that email with that one change, because then you have your high performing email as a control, and then you have your new one, and let's see what happens. Because if it still goes down to 5%, then we could probably lean on it just a little bit and say, okay, maybe there's something going on with an algorithm, or maybe it's just the offer. The example I'm going to use is I get emails from Trinity every week. Now I'm just deleting them because they say the same thing. They were very engaging to me like the first month, but after 2 years, the thing hasn't changed. So that would be my piece of advice. Let's take a look at it that way. Thank you. Good link there, Lisa. I appreciate that. Any other thoughts? And Jacob, if you want to talk a little more offline, we can lean into that. Just drop me an email. Well, thank you, friends. I appreciate your time. I hope you were able to take the past couple of minutes and understand things just a little bit more. Let's see, one more question. Take a look at your subject preview. Yeah, absolutely, Deidre. That's great feedback. A lot of the challenges we have with email is really based on the construction of the email that we're sending. One of the things that, again, what I see often is a subject line that just says, that just says something like weekly offers. But if it says something like learn to roll on 420, oh, that's going to get my attention. Or lose weight by eating Krispy Kreme donuts, that's going to get my attention. Or sweet dream, you'll fall asleep in 5 minutes or so, that gets my attention or what as well. How are dispensaries able to get around the federal SMS restrictions with text messaging? Okay, text messaging is still a little bit muddy, Lyndon. You can do text marketing, but right now that's not something I'm leaning on because there are still so many barriers to SMS messaging. What I think you'll find, there's a lot of value in email, social media. You can do some banner ads. You can do streaming television. You can do streaming audio. There are tools that will allow you to take your social media posts and it turns that into a marketing message, which then shows up on abundance of different platforms. Those are really useful tools for you. SMS is a little tough because you've got to get somebody to agree to an SMS message. Then you have to get them to continue to open your text message. Sometimes the friction that we have is, do you want to sign up? Yes. Do you agree to this? Yes. And it's a lot of back and forth. How do you go about segmenting potential customer groups? Great question, Raina. What you can do is, depending on the platform that you're planning on doing marketing for starters, identify who you want to talk to. And I'm going to say for a second, I'm going to make this a little easy. If I wanted to talk to, say, the 21 to 25-year-old individual, I'll start there. That individual is probably going to be a male or a female, right? But we need to figure out what are some of their general interests and what are some of those general interests that can relate to cannabis. Because when you're doing audience segmentation, there's not a lot of places that specifically say cannabis. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is to research or partner with somebody who can do some research for you and say, if I want to talk to a 21 to 25-year-old, what are their hot buttons that put them in a position to be cannabis friendly? The example I used when I was talking earlier today is I used a college age student, and I'm going to say 21 to, let's just say, 30-year-old. Okay, some non-traditional students. Then you've got your Gen Xers. I'm just using these as easy ones. There's ones in between. That's me. I'm in my 50s. And then maybe the baby boomers. If I wanted to talk to the baby boomers, there's age. You can always identify something that way. Then we look at behaviors and habits. Somebody who might be into cannabis, again, I'm talking about 20% of the customers here, but they might be somebody who is prone to doing things outside. Maybe they're prone to getting things like massages on a regular basis or acupuncture. I use my wife as an example. She's very much into alternative medicine, and she was the one that recommended that I get my card. When you start to identify the types of person who has values that are similar to this in cannabis, you start to see things that are similar. People of a certain age, maybe people who have chronic pain, maybe people who go to the doctor a whole lot. You can start to identify some of these key traits and characteristics, and then you send them an email or you send an ad in those general directions and you see how that ad performs. Can you recommend any distribution channels? For example, I'm wondering about Mantis as a distribution channel. Lyndon, I don't have a specific distribution channel that I can recommend with authority for this one. When I do a lot of my work in the streaming video and the streaming television, and some of you may know this, Mad Hive, for those of you who are agency owners, are wonderful to work with. You actually have to get somebody on the phone or on email, but they're cannabis friendly. Simplify, for those of you who work in the streaming space as well. They're based out of Fort Worth. There's certain states they won't play ball with, but they work well. I'm open for adult use in Missouri, but Simplify will not work with Missouri. I don't understand why. They won't work with Oklahoma and Oklahoma's medical use, but the states they do work with, this changes all the time. They're starting to open up. I've got a few more distribution channels. Lyndon, I've got to look at one of my notes, but drop your email in the chat or drop me an email and I'll send you a note. Good questions. Perfect. No worries. Anybody else have a thought, a question? Anybody want to pipe in if you're an agency owner? I'd love to hear your feedback. Otherwise, I'll let Miss Lisa jump back on.
Yeah. Anyone else? Thank you, Jason, so much.
Yeah,
Anyone else have any last questions? Yeah. And Deidre, thank you. You guys, but feel free to help each other out and add your input. Much appreciated here.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Okay. Well, if you do, I just have a few announcements, but go ahead and throw your last questions in the chat. For those of you who maybe joined a little bit later, there's two main announcements on CMA's side that I wanted to let everybody know about. First is our 8-part online Ask Me Anything series that we will be announcing next week, but it's going to run through the end of May, June, and early July. And each week we are going to do an Ask Me Anything on a different topic in marketing. And we're going to have a speaker or two who will come in, talk for about 10 or 15 minutes on that topic, whether it's content marketing, digital marketing, retail marketing. We're going to be very specific about it, who will speak to their thoughts on where it stands today, where it's going, what has changed with rescheduling, and then we'll have a 30-minute open AMA session. So just like this Q&A, folks can get their questions answered in very specific areas of marketing. We're going to do at least 8 of those each week, back to back on Tuesdays from end of May to mid-July. Further, we are announcing and this is for CMA members specifically, a new add-on product to the membership. So after speaking with many of you over the years, and particularly good timing, I think, with cannabis rescheduling, and Jason, one thing you mentioned that we have very much so seen is a lot of folks in this space are competing for each other's customers, right? So dispensary A is trying to get dispensary B's customers, brand A, brand B. And that makes sense, right? That's how things go. But there is also a really big opportunity to tap into the Canna Curious and the Canna Averse and create more market share for those who are ready or getting close, but need to be communicated with from us and from this space. So we've launched a subscription in partnership with Comprise Agency that's going to be called Get Cannafax. That will be launched and announced next week as well. And what we have done is taken the scientific studies that have come out around cannabis and translated them into layman's terms, English marketing terms that are much easier to understand, so that marketers have really well factual translated information about cannabis, what's the most up to date, so that you can use it in your marketing and communications content. And that is something that is checked regularly and updated regularly. So the intention is to dispel the myths and get very clear on the facts around cannabis, but also give marketers tools and resources and education to add context to their messaging that's coming from the scientific community. And the whole goal of that is to be able to connect more directly with the Canna Curious, Canna Close, maybe, and the Canna Averse, who need to have those myths busted to be able to feel more comfortable getting into this space. Because for Jason, like you mentioned, with your parents and yourself, there's a journey for a lot of us who comes from, this is what we thought, okay, maybe that's not true, more education and getting more comfortable and warming up to getting in this space, to it being very normal and, regular consumers and whatnot. So that product and subscription is for CMA members only. It's an add-on, but we will have that up on the website and launch next week. So more information to come on that. So look out from us and our newsletter and social media, the Get Cannafax subscription, as well as our 8-part it's called Ask a Marketer Anything series that will be starting at the end of the month. And as always, anyone on this call, if you have questions, comments, what are you struggling with in marketing, please send us an email, a message, a DM. My email is lisa@marketingcannabis.org. Your input is what allows us to ask folks like Jason to produce webinars like this and speak to these issues. We very much so actively listen to what's going on, what you need, and then curate our content and our media to respond to those things. And this year is a really, really big year with rescheduling. I've been speaking on this for at least 6-7 months about what that means, but some quick stats: average marketing spend as a percentage of revenue for all industries in North America, vertical agnostic, is around 9% of gross revenue. And our research here at CMA shows that licensed businesses are probably at like 1.5%. So with the ability to start to write off and have more budget for marketing, we have an opportunity to possibly 9x our spend on marketing, but a lot changes with this. And as marketers, we need to be prepared with the information and the research to be able to, information and stats and data to be able to ask for that budget, to be able to spend more, show return, so that when you go to your CFO or CEO, or you're in your annual, yearly, quarterly planning, whatever it may be, you can get more resources for yourself in marketing, because that is ultimately one of the thing that the leaders or winners in this industry and really any space have, is they really do understand that marketing, that top of funnel, and they've got it dialed in. And my personal opinion is that with Schedule 3, we're going to see new players to this space. We're going to see very well-funded players come into this space. We're going to see people with a lot of deep experience, who can afford really good expertise. And if we are not prepared for that, as generally smaller businesses on this call, and as the industry stands right now, what was this? It's going to come home to roost, whatever that expression is, but it's something we want to be prepared for. So that's something we are planning in our messaging and our content for our members over the course of this year, because that's obviously isn't going to happen overnight, but the more ready we can be, the better. And of course, we've been all waiting for the ability to start to write off marketing expenses and get those numbers up in a way that takes some of the pressure off and allows more room to experiment and to test and to try new things, and have that grace between first dollar and dollar needs to give $1 or $2 more in ROI for it to be worth it from day one, which is very, very hard. And all of you should be so proud of yourselves for still being in this space, surviving this far, doing what you have, and giving this industry and your businesses this effort, because it's not for the faint of heart. I know I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited for the next chapter, but in some ways we are just getting started, as cliche as that sounds, but I do believe it's true. And really our goal at CMA is to make sure all of you are prepared and we're able to equip you with what you need as much as possible. So please let us know what you need. If you are not a member, I would encourage you to check out our website and join the community. We do regular online networking events. We do these webinars. We're doing that 8-part series. There's a lot that we do in response to what it is that you need. So you can reach out to Emily, membership@marketingcannabis.org, for any questions. She's happy to get on a call and sort of talk through membership and its benefits with you. And we also have a podcast. So if you listen to podcasts, that's one of our free offerings to anyone who listens to podcasts. You don't have to be a CMA member for that, but our members are the folks who are interviewed. It's called Party Like a Marketer. So we're trying to bring some fun into marketing, right? This industry is supposed to be fun. Marketing is one of the more fun verticals within business. I'd much rather do that than finance, but obviously that's my core competency. You can listen to it anywhere you get podcasts. We do a new episode roughly every week, sometimes 3 a month, just kind of depending on our cadence over here. But check that out. We have experts on all different topics, so you can kind of scroll through the episodes, see what they're talking about. But that's where we get into folks' story, go a little more in depth in their core competency. Jason's episode, which I linked a little bit earlier in the chat, he did talk about his story with that high couple and go into some of the things he mentioned today in a little bit more detail. So if you're looking for some complimentary content to today's webinar, check out his podcast episode. And please subscribe. We do release new episodes, and I love podcasts because it's a storytelling format, and you get to know the guests and you get to know who they are and the why they do what they do in context to learning about how to do the thing that they're talking about better. And so for us, we do that, but it's with a very specific, obviously, cannabis marketing lens. So podcast, membership, AMA, Get Canifax. Emily, am I missing anything? That's what we've got going on. Stay in touch with our newsletter. We have 2 sections to our newsletter. So we have free resources, up-to-date information on the marketing community as a whole. And then we've got a member section for our members in addition to our members only newsletter. And then one thing we've got coming up at the end of this month is a new series we've started. And this is for our members only as well, called War Room Wednesdays. And this is something I produce and speak to, but they're short 30-minute calls like this at the end of the month, and I speak to a new educational topic in marketing and also report on current events in marketing outside of the cannabis industry and broader trends in marketing tech, just kind of where that discipline is going. Because while we have this narrow lens in cannabis, it is really important that we pay attention to what Fortune 500 companies are doing, what is happening with the larger tech companies and marketing tech that's playing out, because all of that does trickle downstream And I think one of the small business hacks that we can all learn from is, if there's a multi-million-dollar company that's doing what you are doing, look at where and how they are spending their money, because they have the resources to ensure those are good investments and that they're tried and true for the most part. And that's something you can take inspiration from, learn from. How are they messaging? What channels are they using? And really kind of learn by watching an example. So I really use that War Room Wednesday to see, and report for you what's going on in the outside marketing world, from a non-cannabis perspective, from a corporate perspective, from a marketing tech perspective, and then also just touch on, here is what's happening in the industry and here is why it matters. And then at the end, we have time, a little bit like a Q&A, but where folks can, it's kind of a mix, I guess, of a Q&A and an AMA, but can present a marketing problem that they're having and have other folks on the call give some input and some feedback, so that just like a war room in business, right? And when we weren't all working from home, I still am, but and you would go into a conference room and, hash out a problem or strategize, give some new context and space, maybe outside of your day-to-day job, where you can connect with colleagues, get their inputs and their take on things, and hopefully just get some fresh perspective. I know it's very easy for myself specifically to get very, heads down, this is my world, and fresh perspective is always, nice and a welcome change. So that event is specifically for that, and it's usually the last Wednesday of the month. So yeah, if you go to the events page on our website, all of that is there, but that is members only as well. So if you're not one, please consider joining and you will have access to all of that. And any other last questions that anyone has for Jason or myself on CMA, tools, any of his content? This is recorded, so we will edit this video and we'll send it out to everybody. So you'll be able to rewatch this at your own pace. Jason, if you want to send us the slides, if you're cool with that, we can always link it, but otherwise they're in the video and whatnot. But please don't hesitate to reach out to us. For members, this will be uploaded in the member portal with every other piece of content we've ever done, so you can watch that at your own time as well. And I think that's about it from us. Emily, let me know if I missed anything, but that's what we've been up to. And congratulations to everybody making it this far. But otherwise, cool. All right, then we will wrap up. Have a great rest of your day. Jason, thank you so much for your time, and Professor Smallheer for everything that you've done to contribute and put this presentation together. I know the time it takes, so very much so appreciated. Okay, bye everybody.